Good morning.
Hello.
Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. It's tomorrow in Australia, Rebecca.
Already.
Already. Should I call you Rebecca or Becky? I've heard people refer to you as, well, I've heard people refer to you as a number of names to your face and a number of names, perhaps not to your face, but which one would you like us to use?
I am fine with either.
What does your mom call you?
Depends on the day.
Okay, what are her options?
Rebecca or Becky.
And how about your father?
Same thing.
Oh, okay. So you have a very bicameral parentage, and I love that. So let's jump in. We have about 55 minutes or so, and I wanted folks to kind of get to know you up close and personal because I was thinking, Becky, Rebecca, I might vacillate myself. Sometimes I'm a conservative, sometimes I'm a liberal, so kind of bear with me. I suppose that's saying that I'm sometimes schizophrenic, but we won't go there. This show's about you and not about me. Um, as director, I mean, you're deputy chief administrative officer, but you're also wearing the interim public works director hat. Is that correct?
I am, in addition to my responsibilities as Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, I am the Acting Director of Parks and Public Works.
And I can see those two hats on your head. You look kind of like a, well, I won't go there, but someone's putting that sign up behind you. I was thinking as we chat that although this is the holiday season and between Christmas and New Year's, and people typically take vacation, but and we're going to talk about the various departments that you're involved with in supervising and managing, but people want they want their garbage picked up during the holidays. I mean, there some people have to work 24/7, 365, regardless of the time of the year. And I start off with that, Rebecca, just to kind of illustrate that uh, you can say what you want about city services, about the state of the world, about the state of politics, but nonetheless, there are people still doing the task. There are people still on call. We have, you're not necessarily an emergency responder, however, under your chief administrative officer
Um,
role, you.
Public Works is a designated emergency response department for all weather emergencies. We are at the call and could be going 24 hours a day.
So let's go go there and elaborate because I was kind of making a side joke, but again, that kind of emphasizes my point that you guys are, you know, responding to public needs, crisis, catastrophes, you name it. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. We are responsible for maintaining egress throughout the city. So that means making sure that the roadways are passable. That could be anything from water. So for two of the last 3 weekends in December, we were mobilized to deal with the heavy rain events. We had crews in to pre-stage barricades, to pre-clean storm drain covers, and to be ready to close down the roads when flooding did occur. We also had our tree crews on standby to respond to any downed trees. The second storm there, we did have about 16 calls for service related to trees, mostly in the early morning hours.
And I appreciate that just because folks will just, when they think of public works or even just city services, the panoply and the extensive networking of really public service responsibilities, it still is even, I consider myself to be normally a somewhat of an intelligent person, but as a new alder, almost every meeting I go to, I'm learning new things about how things are interconnected. And that's why I was really glad to have a chance to chat with you during this holiday season. And let me just quickly say happy early New Year's to you. Uh,
Thank you.
I was thinking of a title, quite frankly, of the show, which was possibly Rebecca Goes to Hartford. Um, the former alder from Ward 28 becomes president.
I mean, those are two very strange things.
But do you understand my mystery in saying that?
I don't.
Okay. you were involved with several years with, we had a former mayor that ran for governor.
I was on the DeStefano staff, both his campaign staff in the early aughts, and then I was his deputy chief of staff and legislative director. Actually, did work up in Hartford quite a bit in that time as the head lobbyist for the city.
So if he had become governor, it's fair to say that there's was a strong possibility you might have gone to Hartford, and Carl would have become mayor.
I mean,
Carl
strange.
Goldfield,
Yeah,
the
that's who
pres
was president of the board back then. Yes.
yeah, so it's just and I mentioned that for folks to kind of know that you've been involved with, there's politics, there's public service, there's community outreach, there's just transparency, but every level of meeting people where the rubber meets the road, you've had that experience, not to mention your educational background in Columbia and at UConn. Are you a big Husky fan, by the way?
I am a Husky fan. Yes.
Or can I ask you, is it more, are you more, you trend more for the ladies or for the guys?
I trend for whatever my television tells me is on TV. Can't tell you who wins or who loses. It's just fun to watch.
But you're rooting for a particular team.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Go
Okay. So
Huskies.
so talk to me. So let's talk about some of the departments that you're from a public works standpoint, because just when you were so kind of just refresh my memory and remind me about the emergency responder aspects, and then you have the routine aspects, the garbage and the trees. So it's just kind of delineate some of the things that people may not know. That really you're on this hot seat. I'm not sure if you wear asbestos clothes, but you seem to be on the hot seat all the time. But you still seem to be smiling and committed and a dedicated servant. So that's why I wanted to talk to you.
Sure. So we have about 10 divisions over here at Parks and Public Works. We have our Parks Grounds division. We have our trades crews, which are over in Parks Maintenance as well. They do a lot of facility and infrastructure maintenance. We have our tree division, as you mentioned. They are responsible for approximately 20,000 street trees, as well as all of the uncounted trees within our park system. Our park system represents about 20% of the city's land area. We have a horticulture division, which is very small, but we do have the greenhouses over at East Rock, the park greenhouse there, and the Rose Garden. And they also maintain a number of beds throughout the city. Then we have everybody's very familiar refuse division. We do not get a break in the year. We work 5 days every week because trash gets picked up 5 days every week. It might not be the same 5 days if we hit a holiday, but they're here 5 days every week. Tomorrow we'll be picking up the Friday route over in the East Shore area because Monday was the holiday. And then we have our streets division. So streets is best known for snow plowing, which we do during the winter months, but they also do street sweeping. They do bulk trash, pothole repair. They keep very busy. We have a bridge division. We operate the city's 3 movable bridges. We maintain them in conjunction with the engineering department, but we are regulated by the Coast Guard, and those bridges are manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We do have a waiver for third shift, so only one of the bridges is staffed, but the operator will open all 3 of them. So you have to wait a little bit longer after midnight. And then we have our public space division. They do code enforcement and permits, make sure that our the contractors that tear up the roadway restore it the way it's supposed to. They're the ones that educate and enforce on the city's public space ordinances, whether it's making sure that you are reminded that you have to clear the snow from your sidewalk within 24 hours after that storm, or making sure that you are properly separating your recyclables. We don't want trash in that recycling bin because it could contaminate the load. We also don't want you to put your recyclables in plastic bags because that actually contaminates the load. The plastic bags are not recyclable through single stream. They will also break the machines.
Mm, mm, mm.
So they're very busy doing that. And then we have our fleet division. So
Mhm.
all of those functions require vehicles to operate, as does the rest of the city. So the general government fleet is all serviced by our garage here at DPW. So that is the final division.
And Rebecca, the reason I was just so really, it's a blessing to hear you mention that menu, and it might be kind of a smorgasbord in some people's mind or gets overwhelming. But I think it's just so important for people to understand or hear and know about these intersecting, I won't say armies, but platoons that are out here fighting their own respective battles. And so the other hat, you're still are dealing with the chief administrative office situation. What are some of those departments that report to you? I guess what I'm trying to say is at the end of the show, I think we'll get maybe 3,000 people calling in and say that you should get a raise. But I mean, I'm just saying. But as deputy chief administrative officer, what are some of the departments that report to you?
So the chief administrative office, overseen by Regina Rush Kittle. I am the deputy. So we are responsible for the operational departments of the city. So public safety, we oversee police, fire, and PSAP, which is our 911. We also oversee the Division of Emergency Management. In addition, the infrastructure departments, so
Mhm.
engineering, parks, and public works. We also oversee HR because it's one of the departments that keeps all the trains moving.
Mhm. And so let's in fact, when you mentioned the trains moving, I was thinking again about in preparation for the show that truly you're a person, and there are a number of other obviously city dedicated employees that are keeping the trains moving. And actually, if you're employed by the city, your role is to keep whatever you perceive to be large or small, you're trying to keep things moving and on time. Given your experience on both sides of the aisle and just interacting with folks, I should say as a point of disclosure, I've noticed at the end of the almost every before and after, primarily before our Board of Alder meeting, how the Board of Alders are seeking insight and wisdom from you. So I just thought that we should do this show for folks to get a good feel for the overview. But what are some of the things that people need to, out of the 100 complaints or causes or suggestions that you receive every day, or maybe that, what are some of the things you'd like to for various our 135,000 whatever residents in New Haven to kind of know about in terms of how we can all collectively keep the trains moving?
So first and foremost, since it's snow season, make sure that you, when you're clearing your sidewalk, are doing, apologize, the sensor does not like me in my office, so the light will not go back on very easily. Um, the snow, when it's snows, make sure you clear your sidewalk for ADA compliance. So when you think about how somebody in a wheelchair or pushing a baby stroller can get
Mm-hmm.
by while somebody else is also going by the sidewalk. So you want a good 3 feet, 4 feet of width. Also on corner properties, make sure you're getting those curb cuts. You don't want somebody to have to climb over a snowbank. So you're responsible for making sure that the egress is maintained.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that is one part. It's also holiday tree season. So people are trying to get rid of their Christmas trees. We will be collecting them as part of your regular refuse. Make sure that when you put them to the curb, they are not in a plastic bag. You can do like I do. You can use the bag to get it out of the house to keep things clean, but it does have to come out of that bag so it can be composted. Um, and all of the ornaments need to be removed and don't leave that garland or tinsel on it,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can dispose of it properly as part of yard waste.
And as you know, Rebecca, that this period, there's something called Kwanzaa, and one of the principles of Kwanzaa is collective work and responsibility. And it just occurred to me that we don't have to wait for a day, one day of the year in terms of the collective work and responsibility of Kwanzaa to just understand that we all are involved with I would say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in your ward, in your home, in your town. So I'm just so glad that you indicated that, yeah, the city has its responsibilities, but we as residents have our responsibilities as well. And I think that's the point that's tough, I think, for folks to digest, because oftentimes it seems that city employees are, I would say, used as scapegoats or therapists even for people to vent. But talk to me about, and as we chat, if things come to your mind, please interrupt. Sidewalks. Talk to me about sidewalks and how that relates to budget and how it's decided. And again, I'm a new alder, but as I speak to other alders, it seems to me this has been continues to be an issue, a concern for people. And I don't think folks understand the dynamics involved, the budgeting issues, the time frame issues. I think there's just so much there, but you can, illustrate it much better than I can kind of stumble over asking the question.
All right, so ultimately, sidewalks are the responsibility of the adjacent property. However, the city will make improvements to sidewalks when the defects are caused by trees, or when there's, hazards that need to be mitigated. So if there's a bump or something that could cause somebody to trip. It might not be how people want to see it fixed, because we will grind down sidewalks to get rid of those lips. We'll patch them with asphalt to make them safe. We will do isolated repairs, so 1 or 2 property lengths. If they're really bad, those will get triaged out to contractors. Or we do large scale replacements, to beautify neighborhoods through an annual allocation of large, multi-block projects determined in conjunction with aldermanic representatives on the resource allocation committee. But the alders have committed a significant sum of money to sidewalks each year. The challenge we're finding is actually being able to spend all that money. We go out to bid every year or two for sidewalk contractors. We do the large projects as named. We just completed a big Sherman Avenue project, so that those blocks were named when we went out to bid. But then we do isolated repairs, those 1 and 2 areas at a time. We have it's open to any small business or minority-owned business registered through the Small Business Initiative. They are allowed to bid on it. And then whatever the low bid is, if anybody wants to meet that price, they can be awarded a concurrent contract. So we have 4 contractors that are on board at that price right now, and they get assigned out work, and we've got more work to assign, and it is funded. It just, they can only work so much, and only in certain weather.
So what, Rebecca, talk more about that, in terms of, are there other contractors in other parts of the state, or is there national contractors or people that do the sidewalk repair? Are we limited in terms of who we can find, the expertise that we can find?
So we follow the city's procurement guidelines. So there's certain thresholds for work that are set aside for small and minority and local businesses. And then there's large scale contractors. We're seeing in the construction industry as a whole that there's more work than companies available with adequate workforce to bid on it and to complete it. So 1, the prices are higher, and 2, it's taking longer to see these things completed.
So what do you say then to a resident who says, "Oh, I need this done"? Do you want us to be patient? You want us to, what do you kind of say to them to assuage their frustration?
I mean, there's not much you can say, unfortunately, because it's hard to tell somebody that the issue right outside their door isn't important. My struggle is that there's 120 some odd thousand people that have the same or similar complaints, that we need to treat everybody equally.
Indeed. Street paving. Let's chat a little bit about that as well, if you would.
Sure. So again, each year we allocate a pretty sizable pot of money towards street repairs. Unfortunately, it's never enough to keep up. And we have what's called a pavement rating index. Every 3 to 5 years, the city is surveyed by an outside agency that drives through and ranks the condition of the pavement on every block in the city. We then use that information as well as the functional capacity of the roadway. So the functional capacity is the level of travel that a roadway
Hmm.
sees. So you've got your major arterials like the Whaley Avenues and the Whitney Avenues.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your collector roads that see, a lot of traffic still, but a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
Things like Edgewood or Sherman. I live on that side of town, so apologize to anybody else if I'm not mentioning your side. It's just the ones coming to my head. They're all treated the same. In fact, that's the third criteria that we use is geography. We try to distribute the selection of candidate streets each year so that every portion of the city sees some level of improvement. And then we compare that to scheduled work. We don't want to schedule a major street repair if we know that next year the WPCA is going to come and rip up the street. Because while you say, well, yeah, that's great, they'll just repave it. Our taxpayers are also the ratepayers. So if we're paying twice for that pavement, it's not good for anybody.
And you mentioned the acronym, the WPCA, that stands for the
Water Pollution Control Authority, the sewers.
and it's, the reason I want you to kind of just make that plain, as they say, because again, there's city, there's state, there's other agencies, there's municipalities, there's regional council of government. So just this interconnected theme is one of the purposes of the show, for folks to understand that there is it might appear to be a labyrinth, but there is a system approach to how we want to resolve things. Would you say, and this is not a trick question, would you say there might be 100 streets that need paving for the various reasons you mentioned? Maybe 20 per year might be able to be addressed, 10 per year out of the 100, 50 out of the 100. But
So not every street is completed equal. So some are a block in length, some are
Mhm.
5 blocks in length, some are 10 blocks in length.
Yes.
Generally speaking, we'll do about 30 to 35 segments of streets a year. So it could be, half of a street
Mhm.
that's in the worst condition. It could be a full street. But generally speaking, we'll do a spring pave and then we'll do a fall pave. Just because that's the contractor availability, we can generally squeak out. You get them for about 2-3 weeks at a time.
Good, good. That's excellent. You mentioned the snow and whether we get snow. I think we got, I guess, a little bit of snow last year. But whatever money's been allocated for snow shoveling kind of thing, does that go, if we don't use it up this year, does it go somewhere else, or what kind of flexibility do you have budget wise?
So the city's snow account is designated for snow preparation and removal. Any funds that are not expended will lapse, so they go back into the city's general fund. So they could be transferred to a department or a division that ran a deficit, or it goes into the city's rainy day fund.
Excellent, excellent. Let's talk about financing for a second. What's the in terms of your perception, again, with your background, working in City Hall, working public works, working on political campaigns, and your academic interest, uh, citizens that get involved with the budget process. What's your feeling about that? Like we have the public hearings on various budget. How can citizens kind of be more involved with coming to the public meetings when we go have the various public workshops on the budget process?
So I think so. I started the city and the city's budget office working on the revenue budget. It's important to recognize that the budget has to balance. For those that say, I want you to spend more on something, the alders are always in a difficult position because they might agree with you, but in order to do that, you need to identify revenue or cut somewhere
Mm,
else.
mm.
So those are the difficult decisions we make every day.
Yes.
Um, revenue, it just doesn't come from the sky. It generally means we're raising taxes. We're seeing a windfall in state funding, which we have in the last several years, thanks to the work of the delegation and the mayor in changing how pilot is funded.
Hmm.
Um, but oftentimes, there are difficult decisions because we have cost drivers that we have to deal with. We mentioned the garage before, like a
Yeah.
vehicle this year to purchase, I was last as parks director in 2019 buying similar vehicles, and I've had sticker shock this year when we
Mm,
went to buy some new ones. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's been a while.
mm, hmm.
um but the parts too, you had the automotive industry strike earlier this year, so the cost of parts has gone up considerably. And those are the cost drivers we have to absorb and still perform the prior level of
Mm,
function.
hmm. And just as you were talking, Rebecca, I thought about I believe Fire Chief Austin had talked about the need for a new fire truck, and we're borrowing fire trucks and the cost. And say a little bit about that.
I mean, all of our fleet is aging. Unfortunately, you have a best life use projection, and then you have limited funding, so you have to make bad decisions and you get behind, and you get further and further behind as those costs escalate, and you made the hard decision last year not to buy something, and then it's twice as much this year.
Hmm.
So it's a snowball effect. We're also seeing huge lead times on vehicle orders right now.
Mm,
We are about to take delivery of a trash truck that we ordered in late 2021 or early 2022. So
mm,
it's been that long.
hmm. So say some more about that because you needed a trash truck. How has that impacted service delivery, so to speak?
It just means that we're running our spares more frequently as the garage spends more time repairing the older trucks,
Hmm.
or you have to have the guys sit here and wait while the truck gets fixed.
Mm,
It might be that the arm hydraulics are, being tricky and they can't empty the cans, so they have to come
hmm.
in for that repair. And the more they have to do repairs, the longer days they're running, and we trigger overtime sometimes for it.
Mm, mm, mm. Great. Let me shift just for a second. Uh, I'll shift, and also shift to Becky because I used Rebecca for the first 25 minutes. Now I use Becky for the second half. We have a lot of young people that watch this show, and even I shouldn't say that only young people, but regardless of your station in life, people change careers. The career path trajectory is not really a straight line. It's not linear anymore. And I was just reflecting on when you were at Columbia University and your School of International and Public Affairs. Talk to me about that shift. Do you see, are you the person that like kind of to move the various things? How do you kind of trace your trajectory from international
I actually
affairs?
haven't really made proactive decisions. When John DeStefano was retiring, I finally got the time to apply and start grad school and do my public administration degree. I did it while I was working full time. Also, got promoted to parks director at that time. Still don't know how I all did it all at the same time, but it all happened and it worked out.
You're being modest, but so for a young person, say if you were given the graduation speech at Hill House this coming June, what would you say to young people in terms of career and passions and purpose and product?
Find something that keeps you engaged, and never stop learning.
Mm,
I think when you stop learning or something gets too easy and you get too comfortable, is things get stale and you're no longer, you know making the creative decisions
mm,
that might save money or might do something faster.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Questions. I don't normally do this, but questions for me?
How are you enjoying being older?
The Alder, I don't talk a lot in public about it because I like my guests to chat, but many people know me from town, and then folks that have never known me before, it's really I'll say partially. Certainly, there's some days it's a blessed opportunity. Others days I have to challenge myself about what I've got involved with. Uh, the word enjoy, and I don't think a public service job you should enjoy, you should maybe even love it, but you should not expect to be loved back immediately. Let me phrase it that way. I think you really need to embrace when you're sworn in. I think the briefest answer to my question, to your question, Rebecca, is that you were hired, you went through HR, you're sworn in as an alder. No, you take an oath. It's not so, and some people might have forgotten the oath as soon as they just lowered their hand, but you do take an oath as an alder. And so this oath is should resonate with you on a daily basis. And I try to remind myself of the oath of the balancing act between your integrity and your commitment and your pressures and your personality. So it's caused me in my young age. You don't have to ask me how old I am, but in my young
Long as you
age.
won't ask me how old I am.
All right, good. So we have an agreement, an informal agreement. At my young age, it's really, I think, helped me to kind of evolve, if you will, or change or learn. And certainly the learning curve uh, is steep. I thought I was a genius and knew everything in the world, but since becoming an alder, there's so many things I don't know. And to paraphrase that a different way, just integrating various schools of thought and integrating your various experiences with the new environments and the new theaters of decision making. That's a delicate balance. I mean, and we can see in the political realm nationwide, worldwide, how we're not resolving our issues from a diplomatic or political standpoint, but other resorting to warfare and violence. So keeping peace on earth, goodwill toward women, men, and children is kind of my mantra. And I try to even remind myself of that each day, regardless of whether you're doing a constituent service response or at one of any of the various committees that I'm on, or even just informal gatherings. Because how do we become human? How do we get perceived to remain human and kind and loving toward one another? I think that's regardless of what your paycheck says, and regardless of what the IRS thinks you're earning money doing. I think that should be the underlying motive. I'm not sure if that answers your
I think so.
answers your question.
And everything's all set for the inauguration on Monday.
Indeed, and hopefully, and it's open to the public,
It
and
is
hopefully people will come.
at
And
Wilbur
even that.
Cross High School.
And did you go to well, on that note, did you grow up in New Haven?
I did not know. I'm a
Mhm.
transplant.
You're a transplant. And so where were you born?
I was born in Newtown. Oh, I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, but I grew up in Newtown, Connecticut.
Okay, so Connecticut person. Yeah, yeah, great. And even just the uh how long did you go to elementary school? I'll tell you where I'm going with this. Did you go to elementary school in Newtown?
I did.
And so did you go to the elementary school where you had the tragedy?
I did not know,
But
although was very familiar with the school.
and just growing up in that part of Connecticut and then knowing Bridgeport, just the disparities in our small little state, just seeing if you traveled around, just whether you want to use the term disparities or whatever, however you want to kind of describe the differences. It's really we're a fascinating state in that regard, and we're a fascinating city in this regard as well. So we may think that we're just one of the 50 states, but we really, I think, New Haven in particular is a global city. And so I mean, as am I enjoying the role, I kind of think about the fact that we're in the land of, of the Quinnipiacs. So people were here before 16, whatever, I think it was 1638 when New Haven was incorporated early in 1630s, I believe. But regardless of your historical kind of perspective, this is we're a key we're in a key space in New Haven. We're in a very key space. And so the inauguration is a chance for us to celebrate, come out and hear the mayor's vision, commune, and just to kind of set us all on the right path to keep the trains running for 2024.
Yep, every 2 years at noon.
And so, but again, that would change with the charter revision that was passed. Uh,
That's true.
you know,
I've been doing this so long, every 2 years, I forgot that.
uh,
But I think the next one is 2 years, and then it's 4 years
yeah,
after.
yeah. Uh, so what's kind of burning in your mind? Because again, I wanted to kind of just for people to hear how we can all be part of the solution and not to just throw stones at one another. Let's kind of see if we can spend another 5 or so minutes on that thought about collective solution driven civic engagement?
So I think one of the challenges I've noticed a lot over the last 10 years, since I became Parks Director 10 years ago now, it's crazy. Litter has been growing exponentially.
Mm,
I think we have to, go back to the, days of the public information campaigns and holding each other responsible for
mm,
actions. The number of times I see people throw trash out their window of their car, or drop something on the ground when the trash can's 10 feet away.
mm-hmm,
Everybody says the solution is more trash cans. Unfortunately, the more trash cans we put out there, the more stops that the trash truck has to make, and the more staff I would need to run those trucks.
mm,
So that it's unfortunately not the solution. We don't have an exponential amount of resources to dedicate towards more staff and more trucks. So we need people to take responsibility for their actions. One of the programs I've loved to be a part of over the years has been our Youth at Work summer programs,
mm-hmm,
the beautification programs, both in our parks and in our policing districts. We've had youth ambassadors in the parks at East Rock and Edgewood, and in every neighborhood, really. The first year of the Recovery Act funds, we were able to put a group of youth ambassadors in every policing district,
mm,
and they were out poking trash,
mm-hmm.
painting fire hydrants, and understanding what it takes to be good citizens.
Yes.
I think if everybody can make a resolution this year to volunteer somewhere, we have
Mm,
a wealth of nonprofits. We have all of the Parks Friends groups. Just get out and service to your community, and
mm-hmm.
teach that level of service with the youth, because unfortunately, I see a generation that's coming up that doesn't necessarily understand the benefit of service.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Just as you were speaking, Becky, my mind went to the under the Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the Civilian Conservation Corps. So there's been government can kind of come up with ideas and just engage one another. And it's tough to convince people of that it's a false dichotomy between government and the public, because you do have these words to kind of talk about who's going to be accountable for what. But I really think that everyone can be an agent. Everyone can be a positive agent, whether you're elected or whether you're sworn in or not. I mean, or whether you're head of your family. Just so when you talk about the enrolling and recruiting and kind of helping with the maturity curve of the young people, yeah, that's so key. Who's you probably will not be able to answer this question in public, but some of your favorite departments. I mean, my mind went to Gwen and Ronald Huggins and just what the tremendous things that they've been doing over the last 2 or 3 years. What are some of your other favorite departments? And but again, if you say all your children are the same, I
I
can
was just
appreciate.
about to make that analogy. Like a good parent, I can't have a favorite.
So let's talk about let's kind of take the next 10 minutes and go back on some of the departments. Let's talk about engineering for a second, because I don't think when I hear Giovanni speak, Giovanni Zen, and just whatever he talks about, because he comes before so many various committees, just the scope and breadth of what the city engineering is about throughout the United States. I mean, just the role of engineering, of infrastructure, of preventing floods. There's so many dynamics to it that I think it challenges me to kind of really comprehend and to stay on task, that from a sidewalk to a drain to the flooding to rain to so let's talk about keeping our infrastructure. So let's talk about engineering for a second, the engineering department.
So they're currently overseeing about $500 million of projects from the conceptual stage through the execution stage. Everything from that giant pump that's going to go out and take care of the water between Union Station and Long Wharf, to small scale projects. They're currently helping to oversee the construction of a brand new playground at Lighthouse.
Mm-hmm.
We should be getting the all done hopefully within the next 2 weeks, and that will be really exciting. The playground out there was beyond its useful life. It needed a little love, and the Zin Children endorsed playground, because we like to use children to help us
Mm-hmm.
make sure that our designs are great. Um, I think it'll be really well received. And obviously, Lighthouse is a gem for those
Yes.
residents who have not visited yet. Make sure you do, because the residents get to park for free. Out of towners, we still charge. So it's a great park. We do hit capacity at some times because it is quite a great destination. It has everything from the splash pad to a brand new playground
Hmm.
to a shaded picnic grove, which is sometimes hard to find at beaches, to a beach that we comb every day throughout the summer.
Yes, yes. A little more, tease us some more. I know Giovanni's working. I've been in touch with him in terms of uh, there's a street on Crescent Street going into Hillhouse Avenue, Hillhouse High School that does not have a sidewalk. So they're actually putting a new sidewalk there, and we have the shed at the Gulf Street Park that is going to be renovated as part of the youth services. But share a little bit, tease us a little bit more with what's upcoming for 2024 in terms in that regard.
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's the I'm better on what's just been completed.
Okay,
Signs are
what's you can boast
Well,
too. You
the
can.
signs are going in today with the renderings on the two new playgrounds at College Woods. The tiny tot playground there had to be removed because
Hmm.
it did not pass its inspection. So that replacement is due in the spring. So the sign with the rendering on it is actually going in today, as is the one out at Giuliano Park in East Shore. I know we are working on upgrades over at Washington Playground and the
Hmm.
Hill. So that order is going in soon. But there's just so much work that we're doing because of the ARPA funds that have
Yes.
supplemented a lot of our projects. We have new benches that actually just arrived uh, last week or the week before. So those will start appearing in places like Gulf Street Park
Yes.
and actually a number of parks throughout the city. There's 38 of them that arrived. So
And before we go to parks, because obviously there's been some discussion, public discussion on the management of the parks. Just my even the pickleball courts. I think I'm not sure. In spite of the pickleball explosion,
we
we have
actually were just ahead of the curve on the pickleball explosion.
very much ahead of the curve.
You had to be in planning when it hit, but it had been coming.
Hmm. So at Edgewood Park and also at
Scandalberry was
Scantlebury,
our first one.
and so I mean that's a true testimony.
And I'll give Gary, I'm going to mess up Gary's last name. I think it's Gary Turco. He's part of the Friends of Scandalberry. He was advocating for a pickleball court before pickleball was cool.
See, and that's I think we forget about. I mean, if you just do a brief Google about first things that happened in New Haven, we have beyond in addition to pizza, we have a number of things. And forget about Eli Whitney, but even more recently, even in terms of penicillin, at the Yale Medical School. So there's a historical DNA that I think that we need to kind of always we can be proud of. We can also maximize moving into the future.
There was one year back in the day when the city used to do the AA calendar printing. One year it was the calendar of firsts, and I remember some of them. It was like the lollipop and the frisbee and the hamburger and the erector set. Erector Square is named because the erector set was built there,
Hmm. Hmm.
and galvanized rubber.
Right,
Goodyear.
right. And I mean, not to mention Amistad and other things, and even the switchboard. So just it's something we have much to be proud of. I was born in Pittsburgh and I came here in 1971, so I'm still somewhat of a transplant. But it's I can find much to be proud of, and then just much to still just move to the future for the unborn generations.
Yeah, I've been here over 15 years and I still feel like a transplant. And, if you still feel like a transplant over 50 years.
Well, folks, remind me, you weren't born at Grace, New Haven, so I didn't think before it became New Haven. We have about 10 more minutes, Rebecca. So as things kind of cross your mind in terms of sharing with folks about the intersectionality and then it's a labyrinth for people not to get lost in, but there's a method, and some might say a madness, but there's a method to the systematic governmental design.
There's people, you know, think of things like graffiti, and they just, want the graffiti cleaned up. For us, we operate in functional silos for a reason in terms of code compliance or enforcement, or unfortunately, sometimes union rules.
Hmm.
So that's our responsibility to triage appropriately. But, when we get that complaint, it might be the phone company that has to clean it off their utility box, or it could be on private property. And then you have to interact with the property owner to
Hmm.
get it done. And LCI takes care of it. It could be something that's on a bridge and then DPW will take care of it. Or if it's in a park, then our parks crews will take care of it. So there's strange rhymes and reasons sometimes why we do
Hmm.
things, and then there's sometimes efficiencies with why we do things some way.
Hmm. Hmm. Just when you were saying that, this is kind of an aside. We have management teams. What's been your interaction with management teams and they're assisting with really just facilitating what I'll call content communion.
So, I've worked for the city for well over 15 years now, and have been involved in management teams both from a resident standpoint and from a manager standpoint. And I think one, you have an overabundance of meetings. So the fact that there's a once a month meeting where that encourages widespread community participation helps to streamline. Some
Hmm.
things don't need a standalone meeting for. You can just go and engage with the management team and give them an update, and just, streamline.
Yes.
It's, an opportunity to engage people, of whether it's around planning their local tree lighting, or, helping select somebody for the civilian review board.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but then, there's also the point that not everybody can participate in their management team, whether it's because of their work schedule or their childcare constraints.
Hmm.
We've got to be mindful that while it is an efficiency that we can achieve, we've got to make sure we do outreach for widespread public participation.
Indeed, indeed. Let's jump to for the next 8 or 9 minutes. I'll just throw out some terms. See, click, fix.
Sure. C-Click Fix is a software program that was actually designed in New Haven. People were starting to submit complaints there before the city adopted it. It is something that we have adopted, we have a contract with. Um, it is not an emergency response system, so people need to make sure that you're not reporting something that is an emergency or emergency level or needs immediate attention there, because we do not have people that watch it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Um, so it's an opportunity for us to track complaints through resolution. Sometimes things are long processes, so they will hang
Hmm.
out there for a long time. Like a tree complaint, we have a huge backlog on them. We fortunately have caught up on our inspections, so something that is reported will get inspected. Um, within 48 hours, if it is, a week that staff is in. I have a lot of absences this week, so if it's reported this week,
Indeed.
it likely will get completed before the end of next week. But we then triage them based on their level of risk, and the time on the system. So if something's a low priority because it just doesn't meet our standards for clearance, as opposed to a risk where, it's a dead elm tree that is dropping branches, they get addressed at
Hmm.
based on level of hazard and time on the system.
Hmm. And as you say, started here, and other cities have widely adopted it.
Oh, and C-Click Fix, yeah, it's
Yes.
one of it did get sold out to a larger corporation. It is something that has been deployed as a 311 response nationally at this point.
Hmm. Excellent. Um, Leadership style. I'll paraphrase for a second. You've worked with you mentioned Mayor DeStefano. You worked under his leadership style, under Mayor Tony Harp, her leadership style, and Mayor Elicker. Someone saw uh, John and Tony and Justin at a bar they would see three different people.
Very different
Uh,
people, yes.
but nonetheless, they're leaders. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Not that you need to write your book, but we've talked offline about your writing your book. So I thought I'd just mention that again in public. But you've observed and worked with and seen what leadership means in terms of getting the job done.
They all have a different style, and there's something to learn from each of them. John DeStefano was very detail oriented. I once got a memo I wrote back without a single mark on it, and I thought he hadn't read it. And it was just the first time he didn't have any corrections for me. Tony Harp was very focused on, needs. Like, she's the one that started us going out proactively and visiting all the homeless encampments before every storm and making sure people knew about the 24-hour warming
Mm,
centers.
mm,
And
mm.
Mayor Elliker is very business minded. He has an MBA from Yale and has a critical eye towards things.
And it seems to me, Rebecca, that this is not a softball, but regardless of the leadership style of those three individuals, and I really concur and agree with your typology, of their personality type, so to speak, your positions such as yourself in terms of the chief administrative officers, that helps to expand. Like Tony might have one strong suit, John might have another, Justin might have another, but your administrative officers help to expand that person's venue, and because we all can't be experts at everything, if I'm making any sense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's always important to surround yourself with a good team.
Okay, so let's talk about the team as we conclude. You have, I mean, I guess in terms of the names that you mentioned, you have uh I'm thinking not Seth. You have Sean. So the other administrative officers, let's kind of conclude on your interaction with them. Can you hear me okay?
Sure. I don't know what you're asking though.
Oh, well, you have Sean Madison, right? He's one in the office. And
So
you have
Sean's the chief of staff. He had been the chief of staff under Stefano. He left for a while, came back as the chief administrative officer under Harp, and is now the chief of staff again.
right, and Regina.
Yep, Regina's been here for about 2 years now, right?
So
No, 3 years. She's about to start her third year.
yeah, she's a vet. And so
She's a vet.
the interact, so in terms of the elegant, I guess the obscure question, I'll try to be more direct in terms of Justin's kitchen cabinet. You guys are the key people on the line to kind of make sure that there's many of us have individual responsibilities for keeping the trains running, but the kitchen cabinet, really, that's where the rubber hits the road. I'm just curious about the interaction, the coordination among those individuals.
I mean, I'm deputy level and a department head level right now, so I'm not in those meetings unless I have to cover for the CAO.
Okay. All right. Any last words then? And I really appreciate your kind of taking the time, because you're in the office now, I think from the background, right? You're not at home like
I
I
am
am,
in
kind
my
of relaxed,
DPW office. I do have two offices.
and two heads and two salaries too. Did we say that in the beginning of
No,
this?
unfortunately
It's
not.
not
Just
coming?
one.
Just
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 one.
one. All right. On the So in terms of parks, perhaps I should have asked this earlier. There's been some discussion of the management of parks and what the department designations. Any feel, I guess there's a consultant that's been hired to kind of look at any kind of thoughts for people, so that my point is that people will hear sound bites and rumors about what's transpiring. And now I have someone like yourself that can really give people at least a temporal update on where we are with the parks organization.
No, I know URI is completing their work. And after the new year, we'll see the first drafts on that with a community meeting. I believe is scheduled in early January. I'd have to check my calendar. Sorry, I can't plug that. But I feel like it will all become pretty clear by the time we submit the budget in March.
And that's really appropriate for us to kind of end on that note about the time is sensitive. The city moves. I know the city plan is having a number of meetings in terms of the 5-year city plan or a 10-year city plan that's obligated. So there are things. Tune into your alder. You know, go to the city website. There's so many things that are always moving that we can participate in and believe in. So even this short time frame that, as you say, by the springtime, we should have some resolution on the organization of the parks. Am I putting words in your mouth, or is that fair to say?
The budget process is a long one, so recommendations for any restructure would be included in that document, which the Board of Alders then contemplates between March and May, and it is effective for July 1.
Excellent, excellent. Rebecca, thank you so much. Any last questions for me? The answer is no.
Of course not.
Well,
What
but you
color
can
are you wearing to the inauguration? That will be my question.
I'm vacillating before traditional African garb and versus the regular business suit. I haven't reached
That's
a
a
decision.
big swing.
I'm a I mean it's a big vacillation. So I have two or three outfits laid out, and I just haven't decided yet. The I guess the most transparent question is whatever one the wife tells me to wear is what. If you want to know the truth, that's the truth.
I will see you Monday.
They see you Monday. Happy New Year. Thanks so much, dear. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it.